Welcome to another update from Black and Blue Garage. This is everything that I've done since January 1st. If this roll cage looks familiar, it's because it is from exofab.com. From the back of the cab forward, this is all an hybrid cage for a Jeep Cherokee. And from this point back is everything that I've designed myself. Now I slided this halo forward an inch or two, and because of that I've doubled up these spreader bars and welded them together with some notched tubing. Welded that up so the back of this halo would be really strong, and that's going to help for if I hit the corners of the halo, all the pressure is going to go right to the middle of this spreader bar across, and so I wanted to really make this a strong unit to help against that. Then I designed these corners here, and that took me a while because this is my first roll cage and bending experience besides the front bumper. I added this and these crossbars. Now, what's cool about these crossbars is not only do they tie in directly to the coil springs, but I'll be able to use this as a means to mount my coolant radiator later on. And that'll be really helpful because there's no room up front for a radiator because of the giant winch that I put up there. Now that's not to say that you can't put a really big winch in the front and fit a radiator. I just decided to mount mine extra high to get as much clearance underneath this bumper as I possibly could. Another thing that I've been working on this year is getting these Bilstein shocks put on in the right spot so that they go through the bed and have the right angles and give the right amount of articulation. So these spring mounts here are mounted a little bit too close to the metal, and that might be a problem if I wasn't going to put a backbone truss on this, but I'm sure that everyone has been wondering why, or at least I would if I was watching this. If you watched my videos last year, I have these Clayton off-road upper spring towers mounted Frenched into the frame, and those are directly above where they mount to the axle. Now, I could have mounted these Clayton upper spring mount to the outside of the frame, but that would leave me with no room for my tires, and when I articulate, it would end up rubbing into the springs and the mount. I think this will actually be kind of a happy accident because the closer your springs mount to the center of your axle, the more articulation you're going to have. Now, the problem with that is if you hit your bump stop really hard right in the middle of your axle, you could bend that tube. But I do plan on putting a backbone truss on this. In fact, I've ordered one yesterday, and when we get a little closer to the summertime, I'll have that put on. Also this year, I've mounted this 2,500 pound mini winch to the bottom of the bed on this crossbeam that I've put in so that I could use this cable, and that'll act as a suck down winch for my rear axle. Let me know in the comments if you think that's a bad idea. Then just yesterday, I put together this bumper. I used the same kind of two tubes welded together with some short notch tubes to make it a little stronger. I'm not finished with it yet. You can see the lower tube angles in a little bit to help with my departure angle. I also cut and folded the corner of this bed so that the bumper can be installed. That's going to hang down about 5 inches from the bottom of the tailgate, and it'll also stick out about an inch or maybe less. Back on this cage for a second because I'm so excited about it. This tube here goes straight to the top of that coil spring down there. I know a lot of people were saying that it would look better if it came back here, and I do agree if this thing was still on leaf springs, because way back here on the corner of the frame is one of the pressure points on where the suspension had an opposite force to the cage. My thinking was that all of the force on the back of the truck is going to come up through those springs into the cage and then back through and over the top. As you can see, I have a whole mess of wiring here. This is just all the stuff that's gonna go to the engine compartment. A lot of it's turn signals and headlights and control for the winch, and then a couple of extra wires for some lights for the engine bay, and maybe a little light bar or something up there. Now, in case you're wondering, I haven't done anything to this LS engine since the New Year's, because if you watched my videos last year, you know that I got it to start and it ran for a little while and I was happy. It made no knocking noises, so I'm waiting for some other things to get done before I revisit this. If you haven't watched my videos before, you'll notice that there's something weird about my intake manifold, and that is that it has no intake or filter on the front. That's because I've mounted this backwards I have the throttle body back here. It goes through the firewall, connects over to this Coleman cooler, and houses the intake filter. Now that mod is my favorite so far because that mounts right where the air conditioning unit used to be. And so it's getting airflow through the cowl right above it. And so all the air that's going to come into my engine comes from above the hood. So pretty much after I bought the Coleman cooler and little hose that connects over to it and a couple of free parts from some friends at work, this thing cost me less than 50 bucks for a cowl intake. Now I suppose that's kind of cool because it leaves me lots of extra room for activities in the front engine compartment, but that's not stopping me from moving other things out of there too. So right next to my fuel tank, I have this GM battery mount to mount the same battery that would have came with that engine, or I have this Optima battery mount from Barnes 4-wheel drive. This thing's pretty cool, look at that. So one dilemma that I think that I've solved is getting coolant from the engine compartment to the radiator in the back. And for that, I have an experiment to try right now because I don't know if this is actually going to work. So if this bends without kinking it, then we can use it and it'll be all good. But if it doesn't, then we're just going to have to come up with something else. Well, that's disappointing. That didn't work at all. So that means I'm either going to have to buy a really expensive manual bender or just make a bunch of straight tubes and connect them with angled radiator hose. That's not such a big problem because rubber hose is cheap and serviceable. That's where this thing comes in though, because I bought this on Amazon last year. Basically stick the tube in there, tighten this down a little bit. You put this crank arm on there, tighten it down some more. Oh yeesh. Check that out. I got a little bead on the end of here and I'd be able to slide some radiator hose over that, put a hose clamp or a tension clamp on that. That'll make a pretty good coolant system. I got this helmet for Christmas so that I don't hit my head in here when I go over bumps and whoops and try to crawl over rocks and fail. The only problem with that, it's a little tall for where I put the seat. So even with all that work I did, making that seat lower, I'm gonna have to go back and make it probably an inch lower. I don't even know if I can, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. Now I know this isn't my usual video, but I do build a lot of things on this channel, so if you'd like to see that, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Now you probably may have noticed, but all last year this shop has been super messy, and that's because there's been a lot of construction going on in here. I've been trying to balance getting videos out every week and do a little bit of modification here and there. Case in point, you can see I have a whole bunch of insulation up on the ceiling and even more rolls of insulation over here. My sister gave me a new window that's double pane. I bought this air conditioning unit and that's got to go in. I just bought a bunch of wiring stuff for that yesterday. My friend Zach is going to come over and help me wire up this panel. Thank you, Zach. I still don't know what I want to do with that office yet, if I want to remove it or make it like a little editing studio once I have air conditioning and heat in here. I think most importantly is I need to do something with these lights. They have been bugging me. They buzz, and now I have like 2 of these 7-foot fluorescent light bulbs that are out, and I don't want to replace those. They're like 7 feet long. I've already messed with these a little bit. I have 2 more over here that are out. I've installed these ones, but they're insanely bright, and if I point the camera up at all, this wide angle lens has a glare on it. So I need to do something with lighting, and I don't know what it's going to be yet. If you have any suggestions, let me know down in the comments, because that will be truly helpful. I wish you all a good week. I hope you accept this video in lieu of a build video. I do have a finished video building that bumper. However, I have unlisted that so that I can send that to another bigger channel to see what they think about it and to see if maybe we can partner up. So that video will be next week. Stay tuned to see me build that rear bumper. And as always, don't forget, it's 100% not perfect, but I like it.